Welcome to the Yahweh Broadcasting Network. I am your teacher, your mayor in Yahweh. What a joy it is to be with you on this evening's broadcast. It's rather a special edition because we're coming on Sunday evening. But I wanted to continue our topic. So we're going to just carry this topic through all the way through Hanukkah. So once again, what a joy it is to be with you on this broadcast. As together we grow in the Torah, the Tanakh, the Brit Hadashah, and the Bezorah. For what purpose? That we might be the image that Father Yahweh created us to be, and that we might walk in the likeness that Father Yahweh created us to walk in. That covers, beloved, his image and his and a lifestyle that is pleasing to him. Hallelujah. As I said, we are going to continue our topic entitled Hanukkah through the first book of Maccabees, because it is in the Maccabees that we find Hanukkah. And we are presently on chapter 2, starting at verse 40. But before we go to that chapter and verse, I want to say that we've had a wonderful, wonderful time thus far in this topic. As I have said in the past, we have not yet got to Hanukkah in the Maccabees, but we're getting there. We're getting there pretty rapid. But Hanukkah is a event of rededication of the temple of Yahweh. You might ask, rededication? Yes, rededication. Well, you may ask, well, why was it rededicated? It was rededicated, beloved, because Antiochus Epiphanes IV, a Syrian, Greek, Roman emperor, king, decided that he was going to go into Israel, go into Jerusalem, and go into the temple of Yahweh and desecrate all of them. Desecration is really more than destruction, because desecration enters into the realm of, into the spiritual realm. Desecration says we not only want to destroy the physical thing, meaning physical Israel, meaning physical Jerusalem, meaning the physical temple, meaning the physical sons and daughters of Yahweh, Israel. When one goes beyond destruction, they go into the area of desecration. Desecration, once again, goes beyond the physical into the spiritual realm. Desecration says, once again, we're not only going to deal with the outward things, but we're going to erase the memory of these things. And if we can erase the memory of these things, we don't have to worry about people returning to them. Desecration goes into completely doing away with, physically and spiritually, the things of Yahweh, the things of Israel, the things of Jerusalem, the things of the Kadosh set apart temple of Yahweh, the things of the Torah. You see what I mean about desecration is blasphemous. Thank you, Father Yahweh. Desecration is blasphemous because it seeks to annihilate from the root the thing that Hasatan is coming after. And that was the will of Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth. He wanted to do more than just go into Israel, go into Jerusalem, go into the Kadosh set apart temple of Yahweh and destroy them. He wanted to put them in a position that nobody ever would remember that they were even there. He wants people to forget totally Yahweh and the things of Yahweh. And we're going to read that in this particular time together this evening. So Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth was definitely what he was later called in history. You know, we talked about that last morning in Shabbat. He started off as being called, once again, Epiphanes. And Epiphanes means God manifested. But by the time that he did what he did, he was known as Epiphanes. Epimanes. And Epimanes means the madman. And I want to say that again. Epimanes. Epimanes. The mad. So he went from being God manifest to revealing what God he was connected to as it relates to the pagan deities of the Greeks, the Latins, the Assyrians, the Romans. This Antiochus Epiphanes was definitely a madman. And he reigned in 215 BC, before the Common Era, that's when he was born. And he died in 164 BC, around the Iran area. We call it Iran, but it is really pronounced Iran. And that goes to tell you how long these demons and devils have been around in that part of the world, especially. Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth brought in to Israel a form of government that is called Hellenistic ideology. And the Hellenistic ideology was simply that. You know, it's something how Hasatan can give his people words that really reflect his dwelling place. Hellenistic. So this Hellenistic government ideology was truly from hell. Oftentimes you hear people say things like, you know, you ask a person, how are you doing today, man? And they come back at you with a comment like, man, I'm living in hell. And you know, they're telling you the truth, whether you know it or not, or they know it or not. Because this Hellenistic ideology was straight from hell. It was straight from Hasatan's camp. And those that were a part of it received a ideology that was, get ready, living in hell. They could truly say we're living in hell, because that is what that form of government is all about. And by the way, that form of government is still around today. Oh, it's called by a different term, but the spirit behind it is still around today. Hellenistic ideology, pagan deities all over the place. And whether you know it or not, a lot of church fathers, and I'm going to say that again, a lot of the church fathers, I did not say the scriptural Torah fathers, I said the church fathers, a lot of them came out of the pagan Hellenistic ideology, which came out of Mithraism, which came out of Hasatan himself. So, you know, don't be too quick to just say this is history and it is past. No, the spirit behind this time in history is in the earth realm, and I should say the world realm today. Antiochus Epiphanes went into Israel, went into Jerusalem, went into the set apart temple of Yahweh, and committed the blasphemous act of desecration. He took the menorah out of the temple of Yahweh and he replaced it with a statue of Zeus. And then, to add insult to injury, he then placed a pig on the table of Yahweh in the temple where the shewbread used to be placed. He placed a pig there as a sacrifice unto his pagan god Zeus, that now sat in the temple of Yahweh, in the place where the menorah used to be. And that is exactly what Hasatan wants to do in your life. Father Yahweh says to return to him in your soul. Father Yahweh says, return to him, Yahweh, return through his son, Yeshua. And what did Hasatan do? Hasatan flipped the script, changed the name of Yeshua to Jesus, changed the name of Yahweh to Jehovah, and now people are receiving a Zeus pig offering in their body temple instead of grabbing hold to their creator, sovereign king, and ruler of the universe. Hear this, beloved. Hasatan is a master deceiver. And he'll tell you in a minute to replace, to change, not to speak the name of Yahweh through his son Yeshua. And we as sons and daughters should be aware of that and bind and rebuke that lying demon through the power of his spirit, Yahweh's spirit, Yah Ruach Kodesh. But that is what Antiochus Epiphanes did. Well, he moved into Jerusalem and in a city that was close by called Modin. And ran into a priest in Modin that would not lean or turn to the right or the left. The priest's name was Mattitia. Mattitia had 5 sons, and Mattitia led a band of brethren in the things of Yahweh. Mattitia was unmovable. So when Antiochus Epiphanes IV told his henchmen, his soldiers, his representatives, to go into Jerusalem and flatter Mattitia, go into Jerusalem and promise Mattitia friendship with Antiochus Epiphanes, promise Mattitia riches and silver and gold, promise Mattitia things where he wouldn't lack in this world anymore. Promise Mattitia that. That was the goal of those that entered into Modin. They were going to bribe Mattitia, his sons, and those that followed Mattitia. But it didn't work. Because when the soldiers entered into Modin with those that were spokespersons for Antiochus Epiphanes, Mattitia said no to his plan. Mattitia said, nope, me and my sons and my brethren, we're going to serve Yahweh and Yahweh alone. Well, after Mattitia said this, a Israelite who had grabbed hold to the Hellenistic ideology ran to the altar of these pagan believers. He ran to the altar and he was going to worship their pagan deity. Evidently, the deal sounded pretty good to him because he was ready to forsake all the things of Yahweh, all the things of Torah, and grab hold to the pagan deities of Antiochus Epiphanes IV. But when he ran towards the altar, when this Israelite that had been deceived ran towards the altar, Matithia slew him or killed him. But Matithia didn't stop there. Matithia killed the representative of Antiochus Epiphanes that was doing all the talking of deception. He killed him. And he tore down the pagan altar that was built for Israel to commit idolatry. He tore it down. After he tore it down, he and his sons and his brethren ran into the hills of Jerusalem. They ran into the hills of Jerusalem. And many of the Israelites in Israel that decided to live for Yahweh and not let these tyrants influence them, many of the Israelites left Jerusalem and they ran into the desert so they could continue to do the things that Yahweh had commanded them to do, like keep Shabbat. Meanwhile, Antiochus Epiphanes IV heard about what had happened. And he sent soldiers, companies of soldiers, into Jerusalem to go against and to find Matithia, his sons, and his brethren in the mountains. They didn't find them, but they did find people that had left the Jerusalem area and fled into the desert. They found them. And they found them. And when they found them, they told them to more or less surrender to the will of Antiochus Epiphanes IV. They told Israel that they must keep the commandments of Antiochus Epiphanes IV. But the people were of one resolve, and the people said, "We will not." And so Antiochus Epiphanes soldiers literally attacked these Israelites that were in the desert. They attacked the men, they attacked the women, they attacked the children, they attacked all that were in the desert, and they killed them on Shabbat. They killed them on Shabbat because the Israelites that were there in the desert said, "We will not lift a stone to throw at Antiochus Epiphanes IV and his soldiers. We will not lift up a stone to throw at them on Shabbat, because Shabbat is a day of rest." And so they were literally wiped out. And that is where we're going to pick up this evening. We're going to start at verse 38. I said we're going to start at verse 40, but we're going to start at verse 38 to get an overview of what took place here. It says these words. So They gave them battle on Shabbat. The soldiers of Antiochus Epiphanes IV battled with those Israelites that had fled to the desert to keep their commitment to Yahweh. And they were slain with their wives and their children and their cattle to the number of 1,000 persons. So 1,000 people were killed. Israelites were killed in the desert. Verse 39. And Mattitia and his friends heard of it. Remember, Mattitia was in the mountains. These Israelites that had fled Jerusalem were in the desert. And when Antiochus slew 1,000 of these Israelites in the desert, Mattitia heard about it in the mountains round about Jerusalem. And they mourned, that is, Mattitia and his sons and his brethren mourned for those Israelites that were slain in the desert. Verse 40. And every man said to his neighbor, that is every man that was with Mattitia, if we shall do as our brethren have done, if we do like those Israelites did in the desert, and not fight against the heathens for our lives and our justifications. And their justifications was Geburah. Remember that. Their justifications were to bear the image of Yahweh. Their justifications were to do what Yahweh had told them to do. They were justified by Yahweh. They wanted to live under the justice mechanism of Father Yahweh. They continued, they said, if we do like they did in the desert, they will now, that is Antiochus Epiphanes IV and his soldiers, they will now quickly root us out of the earth. Do you see? That is desecration. They'll now not just kill us, but root us as a people called Israel out of the earth. That's Hasatan's goal today. I want you to hear that. That is Hasatan's goal today. His goal is to root out, blot out, do away with the name of Yahweh, the name of Israel, Yahweh's people, nation, and land. It's Hasatan's desire to root out the Torah, that is the record, the written record of what Father Yahweh has left for his sons and his daughters. It is Hasatan's will, beloved, to root us out of the earth. Someone says, well, why does Hasatan want to do that? Well, if Hasatan can root out the very memory or remove from the memory of men the name of Yahweh. If he can do that, root out the very memory of the Torah, root out the very memory of the mitzvot, root out the very memory of that which Yahweh has placed in this earth realm for us to do. If he can do that, if Hasatan can do that, the only thing that will be left is, guess who? Hasatan. And if that is done, Hasatan would have won by forfeiture. Forfeiture. And this is what concerned Matithia and his sons. They said, we can't let Hasatan just come in here and do at will what he wants to, because the end item is he wants to blot us out from the memory of those that are upon the earth. And by the way, don't you let Hasatan ride into your camp and just at will do what he wants to do. You do what the Torah and Tanakh says for you to do, and that is resist him. Resist Hasatan in the name of Yahweh, through his son Yeshua, and by the power of his spirit, Yah Ruach Kodesh. Verse 41. And they determined in that day, saying, whosoever shall come up against us to fight on the Sabbath day, we will fight against that entity. We will fight against him. And we will not all die as our brethren that were slain in the secret place or in the desert. So right then and there, Matithia, his sons and his brethren, they made resolve. And they said, no more. We will not let Hasatan think that he can just ride in on Shabbat and have his way without any resistance and kill us as a people and as a nation. We will not let Hasatan do that again. You know, back in Bereshit, Genesis, it says that one of the things that Father Yahweh said to Adam and Hava before they sinned, before they became Toraless, it says that Father Yahweh told them that they were to be plentiful and they were to take dominion over the earth. In other words, nothing in the earth realm was given that authority but man. Man is the only creation of Yahweh that Father Yahweh said to man, I give you dominion over the earth. He didn't say that to any animal. Watch this. And he didn't say that to any other spirit. And he sure didn't say that to demons and devils, principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, and wicked and evil spirits. He sure didn't say it to them. He said it to one entity, and that is the Yahweh man called Adam and Hava. And Father Yahweh, when he breathed into their nostrils his breath, he was breathing in his image, he was breathing in his likeness, he was breathing in his presence, he was breathing in his Shekinah. And it was because of that man, Adam, was equipped to do what Yahweh had given them the authority to do. Dominion people. If the sons and daughters of Yahweh, even going up to and past here, Matthew, his sons and his brethren, if they would have just laid down and said, we're not going to fight on Shabbat because the enemy, Hasatan, knew that Shabbat was looked at as a time of rest. He knew that he could use that as an advantage place of not losing one person on his side, but wiping out everybody on the other side. Well, Hasatan was put in check at this point when Matthew and his sons and his brethren decided no more will Hasatan have that advantage. We will fight. And it goes on. Verse 42. Then was assembled to them the congregation of Assyrians. When they made this commitment, there was a group of Israelites called Assyrians. Well, really, from a Hebraic perspective, Assyrians, I should say, Assyrians is not Hebrew. The Hebrew word is Hasidim. That's Hasidim. Hasidim. And the Hasidim were those who were pious in Israel. They were a sect of Israelites which stood against this pagan governmental overtake of Hellenization. They said no to being Hellenized. They said no to being Greekmatized. They said no to being Anglicized. They said no to being Latinized. They said no to any government outside of Israel coming into Israel and setting up shop as though they were in charge of Israel, Jerusalem, and the temple of Yahweh. They said no. So this sect, Hasidim sect, they opposed the Hellenization of Israel. And they met with Mattitia and his sons and his brethren. And now you have a body of folk that have joined Mattitia and his band. Let me say this too. It's believed that the Hasidim that were called Assyrians, that's a non-Hebraic term. The Hasidim eventually became Pharisees. That is believed, because this was a very pious sect in Israel. And it is also believed that out of the Pharisees, there is a group today in Orthodox Judaism that is connected with the Hasidim. The group is called Chabad. And they have their roots in this Hasidic sect within Israel of old. So, once again, verse 42. Then was assembled to them the congregation of the Assyrians, who were the stoutest of Israel, and they were the pious of Israel. They were a sect that I just mentioned. Everyone that had a good will, every one of them had a good will for the Torah, or the mitzvot of Yahweh, or the law of Yahweh. In other words, they were unwavering, and they had a good grasp of understanding of the mitzvot of Yahweh and the Torah at large. Verse 43. And all they that fled from the evils joined themselves to them. So now everybody that was in Jerusalem and everybody that was in Israel at large, that were tired of being oppressed, suppressed, oppressed, depressed of Hasatan, working through Antiochus Epiphanes IV. Every Israelite, they fled to Mattitia and his sons, and to the brethren that now included the Hasidim, a body of Israelites that were now one in purpose in Israel, and were a support to them. That means they They gave their all to them. Verse 44. And they gathered an army. This new group with Batibia gathered an army and slew the Torahless in their righteous indignation. So now you had a body of Israelites that said, all you Israelites that have mixed in and become a part of Antiochus Epiphanes and his band of evildoers, if you're claiming that you're a part of Israel and still want to and still want to participate against Israel by being a part of that pagan group, you're going to have to contend with us. And they slew sinners in their righteous indignation. They slew Israelites that had committed themselves to idolatry. And that simply means that they cut themselves off from them. They cut themselves off from them. They didn't have anything to do with them. And neither can you as a son and daughter of Yahweh. You have got to cut yourself off from those individuals that eat at the table of Israel, but are not a part of Israel. They are a part of Judas. They are a part of, from birth, Judas was an opposer of Yahweh, son of perdition. And there are sons of perdition in the camp of Israel today that we cannot be a part of. It's very important that we as sons and daughters of Yahweh take inventory of those that we associate with and make sure that we aren't bonding with someone who is opposed to the things of Yahweh. Or we can share Yahweh and Torah with them, but we can't bond with them. Yeshua doesn't bond with the sinner. Yeshua bonds with those who come to Father Yahweh through him. That's who he bonds with. He sits at the right hand of Father Yahweh, making intercession for those that are bonded with him. That is who he is making intercession for. He's not making intercession for the world. The world can only meet Yeshua on the tree of Golgotha. That's where their salvation, that's where their relationship, that's where their fellowship with Yahweh begins. The sinner's fellowship doesn't begin with intercession. Yeshua's intercessory work sitting at the right hand of Father Yahweh. That's not where That's not where the sinner's work begins. You know, it begins when that sinner realizes that Yeshua died on the tree of Golgotha on earth. He destroyed sin in his body on earth on the tree of Golgotha. That is where the world meets Yahweh through his son Yeshua. That is where the world transfers out of darkness to light. It is there that that is done, on the tree of Golgotha. But for those of us that have come through that work on the tree of Golgotha through Yeshua, those of us that have come through that work, Yeshua is still working on our behalf at the right hand of Father Yahweh, making intercession for us. And they gathered an army and slew the sinners in their righteous indignation, and the wicked men in their indignation. And the rest fled to the nations for safety. Verse 45. And Matithia and his friends went round about, and they threw down the altars. So now Matithia and his sons and his company and those that he had grown and those who had grown with him, now they're doing more than just becoming hermits in the mountains. They're going on a mission. What is their mission? To tear down altars, pagan altars that are in the land of Israel, that is in the cities around Jerusalem. Now you see them being active in tearing down pagan altars. You know, that's what those of us who are a part of the Yahweh Broadcasting Network, that is what we're all about. Believe it or not, that is all that we're doing, or I should say that is one of the things that we are doing. We are broadcasting for the purpose of tearing down pagan altars that Hasatan has set up through religion. I'm not, and we're not here to really be, to go against people. We love people. But people who have attached themselves to the altars of Hasatan through religion, we're simply saying to those people, come out from amongst them. We're tearing down the altars of Hasatan. We're tearing down the pagan deceptions through religious activity that Hasatan has grabbed hold to people and spun them in his web. We're saying to people, It's time that you turn from religion and turn to Yahweh, the creator, sovereign king, and ruler of the universe. We're saying to you, we're saying, come on, listen. May the blinds be removed from your eyes. May you begin to see clearly. May the stops be removed from your ears. May you hear clearly. What thus saith Yahweh. Verse 46. And they circumcised all the children. Hear this, beloved. Hear this. They tore down the altars and they began to circumcise again the sons of Yahweh. They began to move in the direction of Yahweh. They refused to be like some of the Hellenistic Jews. They refused to allow the pressures of Antiochus Epiphanes IV to cause them to run further from Yahweh. Are you running to Yahweh? Or are you running from Yahweh? Matithia and his sons and his band of soldiers began to turn and move towards the things of Yahweh. They knew Yahweh said, they knew what the Torah said as it relates to pagan idols and pagan altars in their nation. So what did they do? They began to throw them down, those altars. They knew what Yahweh and his Torah said about the city of Jerusalem. So what did they do? They started proclaiming Yahweh again, through through the Torah. In other words, now they're moving to remove what Hasatan is doing. Are you doing that in your home, in your life, in your home, in your community? What are you doing? Are you just saying, no, I'm not going to be a part of that, and so me and my family just going to stay here? Or are you saying we're implementing things to remove the work of Hasatan? Well, that's what we're doing once again on the Yahweh Broadcasting Network. We're proclaiming Yahweh through his son Yahshua by the power of his spirit, Yahweh Kadesh, and doing everything that we can to inform people about the idolatrous religious happenings that Hasatan is using in the world today, and asking Father Yahweh to give us the ability to remove them, meaning the altars of pagan deities that have set up in the hearts of people's souls. Remove the altars of pagan deities. And they circumcised all the children whom they had found in the confines of Israel that were uncircumcised. And they did it valiantly. Verse 47. And they pursued after the children of pride, and the work prospered in their hands. Verse 48. And they recovered, hear this, and they recovered the Torah. They recovered the Torah out of the hands of the nations. Wow. They brought the Torah back. Remember, Antiochus Epiphanes IV, in his commandment, said all Torahs must be removed. Well, now Antiochus is being resisted. Now Matthegia is saying, no, we're not going to just allow you, Antiochus Epiphanes, to remove Torah scrolls from our land. We're going to resist you, and we're going to take back those Torah scrolls. And we're going to take them back from out of the hands of these goyim nations that have tried to settle in our nation, our cities, and our people. We're not going to let it happen anymore. Out of the hands of the nations, out of the hands of the kings, and they yield not the horn to the transgressor. They yielded not the horn, and that is the shofar. They even took back the shofar, which was a sound which is called the voice of Yahweh, and was used by Israelites as a horn of it was used as a horn to let Israel know what was happening in their region, in their city. So they blow the horn for different things that would occur. They blew the shofar. It says horn here. It really wasn't a horn. It was a shofar. They regained the sound of the shofar. This is a beautiful account. Matthegia is doing a wonderful job. And guess who doesn't like that? Antiochus Epiphanes IV. And when we continue our study tomorrow evening, we're going to see how Antiochus Epiphanes is going to respond to this band of Israelites that refuse to bow down their knee to Antiochus Epiphanes IV, to the pagan idolatrous altars, and to Hasatan himself. They refused to bow down. We're going to see the response of Antiochus Epiphanes starting tomorrow evening. And I sure pray that you will join us tomorrow evening as we continue our topic, Hanukkah, through the first book of Maccabees. If you would like to help take the name of Yahweh and Yahshua throughout the earth and into all the world, if you would like to help us proclaim the name of Yahweh, if you would like to help us tear down the altars, the pagan altars of religion, if you would like to help us reach multitudes, why don't you give a tithe, a offering, a love gift, a contribution, and or donation tonight? You can send that tithe, offering, love gift, contribution, and or donation. You can send it to us by going to our website. Our website address is www.the Yahweh, YAHWEH.org. Once again, www.the Yahweh, YAHWEH.org. When you get to that website, you will see a link that says donation. Click that link. It will reroute you to PayPal. And it is through PayPal that you can send that thank you, Yahweh tithe, thank you, Yahweh offering, thank you, Yahweh gift, thank you, Yahweh contribution and donation. You can send it tonight. Hallelujah. Well, it's been a real joy being with you this evening. And I speak the name of Yahweh upon you. And I pray Yahweh's best upon you, his sons and his daughters. Until tomorrow evening, this is Yirmiyah Yahweh saying to you, sons and daughters of Yahweh, you truth seekers of Yahweh, and you Talmudim, students and disciples of Yahweh, I say to you, Shalom.